G'day, guys. Welcome back to the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. I'm your host, Mark, with my co-host, Britsburg, Owen. Owen, mate, how's it going? Welcome to the Steel Syndicate podcast.
Yeah, man. Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, Steel Syndicate podcast. Looking forward to it today. Yeah, up for it. Going to be a fantastic Steelers discussion again.
Well, we have a big topic straight away. We're going to jump into it right now. But just before we jump into the big topic, hit that subscribe if you do like our content, because we're on the road to, I think, 900. And then further on, we want to get to 1K. But the big topic today is Stephon Tuiit. And I want to ask you point blank right now. We're gonna talk about this a lot. Will Stephon Tuiit be a Pittsburgh Steeler in 2022? Point blank. Yes or no?
You want a one word answer?
Yeah, go. And then, one word answer, and then we'll break it down.
Yes.
I agree also. I think yes, he will. Now, why do you think he will be a Pittsburgh Steeler in 2022?
Because I trust Cam. I trust in what Cam says. Cam he's the heart, he's the soul, he's the Pittsburgh Steelers at this moment in time. He is like the modern day version of Mean Joe Green. When Mean Joe Green in the past, when he spoke, everyone listened. Now, when Cam speaks, everyone listens. And Cam said that, he's spoken to Tuiit. He said that Tuiit is working out in Indianapolis where he lives, that he is going to come back. You've got to trust Cam. Cam, he's the defensive team captain. He's the main man. And, Cam is just fantastic. The way he conducts himself. So, I've got the utmost trust in him.
Yeah, I agree. So I did hear that report too. I thought, Cameron Hayward was talking about that, and you're 100% right. Cameron Hayward is the leader of this. I know it should be TJ too, but I think he's the leader of this defense. Pretty much could be the leader of the locker room as well. He's old enough to look. He's my age, but he looks like he's 50 odd years old. Looks like he's going to be a coach. He could be a coach out there, maybe after the the seasons that he does with Pittsburgh. I think he will retire as a Pittsburgh Steeler as well. I heard other reports too. I don't know if you heard about this. There was Alu had an interview with the Steelers too. I think he talked about how Stephon Tuiit's coming back. So maybe it's in the works of the next few weeks, and it will be minicamp. Yeah. But is there any other signs that you see that Tuiit will be a definite coming back so far?
I mean, just touching back on what you were saying about Cam. I was really, really encouraged to hear that, there was, I can't remember who it was now, one of the Steelers journalists, one of the guys who works, who interviews the Steelers, who's there at the OTAs, etc., was talking about Cam, and he said that he saw Cam working with a lot of the younger lads, with the younger guys like Loudermilk, with like Trayvon Mason, who was one of the guys with the UDFAs we signed, with Carlos Davis, with DeMarvin Leal. He said, and he was actually, coaching them, talking to them, showing them how to do things. And that's just amazing. This guy, I think, will go the same route as Joe Green, as Joey Porter, will become a coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But going back to what you asked about the signs about Stephon Tuiit, I just think that, yes, we drafted DeMarvin Leal, but if you look at the way Steelers draft, the Steelers always draft a year ahead. They draft for the future. And Alu, who's been a fantastic servant for the Steelers, is not getting any younger. The likelihood of him being there in 2023 is not great. Cam is not getting any younger. Stephon is not getting any younger. And also, given the struggles we had last year on the defensive line, bringing him in made sense. So, if they'd had any major concerns over Stephon Tuiit being a long-term absentee or not coming back at all, I think they would have acted in free agency to sign someone like an Akeem Hicks, an experienced veteran to bring into the team, and they didn't do that.
That's a very good point. And it's funny you say too with Cam, working with the young blokes too. We off air before we start the show, we started talking about retail and our past previous experience in working the environment, and the guys getting older. That's what you do in any job you work in. If you are a veteran, like 5, 6 year, 7 year, 8 year veteran, whatever job you do, if a new fella comes in, you're teaching him your ways and what you know. Because I'd be scared. I would be like, if Cameron Hayward wasn't doing that, I'd be like, what? Like, if he wasn't helping, show his passion and show what he knows about how to play football, I'd be worried. But he's in the trenches. He's out there. I think he was coaching. Yeah, was it Loudermilk? He was pushing up the the big dummy thing. It was awesome to see. But with Tuiit, it's probably one of those things where maybe it's not an issue at all. Maybe it's only an issue for the Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and we're like, will he play? Won't he play? Because we went through that all last year. Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers know the decision that's going to happen, because I think he's already got his. There was images too with Tuitt's locker room that he had his name there, his plate there, and stuff like that. So maybe he's coming back. Maybe everyone knows he's coming back. It's just that maybe it's not a topic that they need to add fuel to the fire, because Mike Tomlin was asked, where is he for volunteer, the OTAs, and Tomlin said they're voluntary. Like he just said, well, you don't need to come to these things. And that was a great answer. So overall, I think, point blank period. I think, yes, he will come back in 2022. Now, let's get into what the impact will be. Maybe even this year and next year, if he does come back, will he be in football shape, do you think?
I mean, just going back a minute to what you're saying about Tuiit as well. I think this knee injury that he's had, the op that he's probably had on his knee, was probably a lot worse than perhaps we knew of. But the Steelers aren't going to come out and say, "Oh, guess what? Tuitt's knee is gone. He's got a really bad knee." Because the moment he says that, they go out and say that opposition teams are going to plan to chop block him, to hit him at the knees, do anything they can to weaken him. So they're not going to come out and do that. But I think it will take him time to get back into game shape, though. After missing a whole season. We saw with Devin Bush the amount of time it took him to get back into the swing of things. He was getting back towards being himself towards the end of last season, but he still wasn't where he was when he got injured against the Browns in his sophomore season. So it's going to take Tuiit, even though he's a lot more experienced than Bush, to come back and get back into game shape and to be the dominant player that he was in 2020.
Yeah, and speaking of 2020, I just looked up his stats now. He had played 15 games in 2020. He had 11 sacks, pass deflections 3, so he put his big paw up to get 3 of those. 2 forced fumbles, combined tackles he had 45, solo 33, and tackle for a loss 10, and QB hits 25. So he had maybe one of his best years in 2020, just by getting 11 sacks. So it's going to be interesting, because I don't think for us, commenting on the Steelers, we've actually been through this kind of thing, that a player's taken a whole year off, and there's been such speculation around him starting or not starting. And you are right, though. We didn't bring in a free agent to say, well, we're going to fill the void. And I do think DeMarvin Leal, I think you agree too, that he'll go out there and be successful behind. But it could just be the case that maybe he could be ready to go week 1. Would you not say? Because you've got Cameron Haywood and Tuiit are best mates. And maybe they're ready. Maybe they're ready to go week 1, and when he turns up in minicamp, he's ready to go, and that's it. And then once, the funny thing is though, once we see him, probably never talk about him again.
Yeah, exactly. I think the thing with Tuiit as well, that is that he'll come back, and he will make a massive difference. You look back at 2020, you look back at his game tape. This guy, even when he's getting blocked, he's shoving blockers all the way into the backfield. That he's still effective in causing disruption, even when he's not getting past that blocker, because he's shoving that blocker all the way into that backfield. And the amount of times that he's busting past that blocker and taking out the running back as well in the backfield is just awesome. And I think that's a lot of what we missed last year. That's why our run defense was so porous, was because the fact that Tuiit wasn't there. He is that player who bursts into the backfield and who helps to stop the run before it even starts. And not having him is a huge loss. And I think having him back next year, this coming season, will make a huge difference to that run defense, because he's just such a physical specimen. He's such a wrecking ball on that defensive line.
So I want to bring up this image. I've used it before in previous shows, I think about a month ago, but I made this image, and this is, to me, is the 2022 defense. But I want to ask you a question based off this, right? If Tuiit comes back, we have Haywood, Alualu, and Tuiit up front. And that, to me, is that's my predicted defense. Yeah. Yours may be different. But in this visual image, Owen, with Tuiit being there at defensive end, Who succeeds the most out of all these players? Not Tuitt. Who succeeds the most out of all these players listed? Is it Bush? Is it Fitzpatrick? Is it Edmonds? Like, who can create more turnovers, or who makes a bigger impact by having Stephon Tuitt on the field?
I think you've got two players for me. I mean, Bush struggled a lot last year because of the fact that the Steelers' defensive line could not keep that second level clean. You know, Bush, because of his physical size, cannot take on offensive linemen. That's one of the biggest things. And the issue was that the offensive linemen were getting past the defensive line, getting past the likes of Wormley, Mondo. You know, even Wormley did a solid job, but the offensive line was still getting past him and getting into that second level, which was sort of defeating Bush's effectiveness. But the other thing you've got to look at is you look at that left-hand side of that defense, and you've got Tuitt and Watt coming at you. Who on earth do you double team? That's a massive thing for me. You know, you double team Tuitt. Okay, we'll double team him. Then you've got Watt coming. Okay, put 2 on Watt. Well, then you've got 1 on Tuitt. It's a nightmare for opposition offensive lines.
That's a very good point. I never thought about that till today. So you have Tuitt there, and right behind him you have TJ Watt, and on the other side you have Highsmith and Haywood that can work in tandem as well. Because I think Highsmith is going to go off into year 3.
Oh yeah, I agree.
But if that, to me, out of this screen here, and we'll talk about Tuitt more, but who do you disagree with this out of my projected 11? Who would you disagree with?
The only one that I would say that is a possibility to shift around would be Witherspoon. I think Cam Sutton could play outside corner. I think Wallace has to be a shoe-in for cornerback for that job that Joe Hayden did for cornerback 1. He is. I've got really high aspirations for Levi Wallace. I think he'll do a great job. Witherspoon, when he's been asked to step up and take that leadership role, he's had some good games, but he's also struggled when he was at Seattle, when he was at San Francisco. So I'd possibly play Cam Sutton instead of Akello Witherspoon.
Yeah, right. And so Sutton over Witherspoon right there. Now, jumping back to Tuitt, is there a chance that Tuitt can win Comeback Player of the Year this year in 2022? Even though he's not back yet, but is there a chance he wins Comeback Player of the Year?
It depends on how he's rehabbed from that knee injury that he's had. I think we forget about that forget about the sort of the mental side of it. I think that it's probably the knee injury that's caused him the most hassle. So for me, I think it depends solely on how he's rehabbed from that injury and where he is and what confidence he's got in that knee. You know, Bush got a lot of criticism last year because of his play, but I think what people forget is that when you come back from a knee injury, you've got to have confidence in that knee that it's going to hold up to, and the defensive players, they've got to explode off the line. They've got to twist, turn, move, go laterally, try and shove people out of the way. So they've got to have a lot of power coming through those knees. And if they haven't got that psychological confidence that where they're constantly worrying that, oh my God, it could go again, then are they going to be as effective? And I think that's what Bush suffered from. So a lot of it will be the psychological side of the thing for Tuitt. Is he going to be in a position where he's going to have utmost confidence in that knee, that his knee is not going to go again, and he can actually bring his A game in, game out?
So you might know more than I do, and I'm sorry if I put you on the spot, but is this Tuitt's last contract, right? And this is his last year, or is it his second year?
Like sure. He's got a year left after this.
I think he has a year. I think he has a year left to go as well, right? Yeah. So is there a situation where that maybe he just plays out the contract with the Steelers and that's it, and then he says see you later, and all parties say goodbye, or does he play well and they offer him another contract to maybe end his career with Pittsburgh?
I think if he plays well enough for the next 2 seasons, there's no reason why they wouldn't offer him a new contract. I mean, you look at Alo. He's 35 this coming season. He's still playing. Cam's 33.
Yeah, 36 my age.
Sorry, yeah. Tuitt's 29, I think, this year. And, there's no reason why he can't play for another 4 or 5 years. So there's no reason why he couldn't be given another 3-4 year contract after this if he proves himself for the next 2 years. A lot obviously will depend on whether he wants to play on. Given what's happened in his family, given where he is mentally, given where he is physically as well, it may be the case of, he doesn't want to put his body through another 4 or 5 seasons of NFL football. He's probably made enough money by now to not have to worry about having to work again. So it depends what he wants himself. But no, there's no reason why he couldn't be offered a new contract and he could go on and play for another 3-4 years if he is physically fit.
Well, no, I agree with you too, because if we were to have, Cameron Hayward and maybe someone else who comes in at the defensive tackle, because I don't think Alualu will be there next year. I can even see Alualu playing starting role, and then maybe one of the other fellas stepping up if it is Leal near the end, because I think he's getting pretty long in the tooth. I think his days may be over. I don't think they're going to sign him for another 2 years, but they might bring in someone else. But if you have Cameron Hayward and Stephon Tuiit on this line, starters for the next 2 or 3 years, because I think Cameron Hayward's got a contract for about 4 or 5. I think, he looks to be retiring as a Pittsburgh Steeler. I have great confidence in the Steelers that defensive line, and then now having Highsmith and TJ Watt being there as well. Then you can start to build pieces around that and go into the draft. And that's what they're doing, getting younger in certain positions, bringing in Miles Jack. So I have great confidence in that. But you are right, though. It all depends on what, I guess, reality is, and this is the whole conversation, what Tuitt's going to do. And I'm not even sure if Tuitt has a social media, because maybe he's just been so quiet that you don't hear anything about him. And I know he's a fan favorite for a lot of people, and he had a good year in 2020. We just don't know what to expect. But I think if we both agree he's going to be there, would you not agree it's going to take a little bit of time to accustom to the role again? But then I could be completely wrong. He may go out there and sack Joey Bungle 2 times.
Let's hope so. But I think the Steelers are doing it the right way. Again, through the draft, they're building through the draft. And if you look at the pieces that are coming through now, last year, Isaiah Loudermilk, who I think they see a lot of similarities between him and Cam. I'm not saying he's as good as Cam, or he will be as good as Cam, but they see a lot of similarities between Isaiah Loudermilk and Cam. Sort of physical strength, physical stature in the way he plays the game. DeMarvin Leal, again, is a one for the future. He will play snaps this year, but he's not going to be a starter, but he will come into the team 2023, 2024. They're starting to look long-term at replacements for those players. And I think, Montravius Adams, who came in last year, did a very solid job, in that middle. So the Steelers are clearly planning for the future, and they're bringing in these young lads to come in and replace the likes of Cam, the likes of Tyson. And it's the Steeler way, isn't it? Even when Omar Khan was talking the other day, he talked about the importance of building through the draft, of building, bringing in young players who've got that hunger, that ambition, and that the Steelers can mold into being Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's what they're doing, and that's what they're going to continue to do, I think.
All right, so I'll give you the one last question on Tuitt, and then we'll move into some other Steeler topics. But what is the overall goal, do you think, for Tuitt personally coming back in 2022? Is he going out there to win a Super Bowl, or is he just going out there to play football? Or like, is he just what do you think he's going through?
I think his goal this year has to be to get back into the team and to start to perform somewhere near to where he was in 2020. I hope that Terrell Austin will manage his snaps this year. They'll spell in the likes of Isaiah Loudermilk, Chris Wormley, DeMarvin Leal to manage his snaps, because they can't expect him to play 70, 80, 90% of snaps this year, just because of, we don't know how bad that knee was, but I'm guessing that it was not good at all. So he needs to have those snaps managed. I think his aim is to get back into playing professional football. That's his aim anyway. What happens in terms of the Steelers and what we achieve this year, that's open for debate, isn't it? But certainly if you listen to the media analysts, we'll be picking in the top 10 of the NFL draft.
They've got us going number 1, mate. No one Shea leaves in the Steelers this year. I just cannot believe it. I know I'm biased, and we're all biased, right? If you don't think you're a biased Steeler fan, I don't know what's going on. But they reckon that we are the worst in the division, and I do not agree with that. I think we had one of the best off seasons in maybe in history, like the draft. So I want to go into a few other questions talking about Steelers topics, right? And we didn't pre-plan this, but what's your overall thoughts on Mr. Omar Khan?
I think it's a great appointment. I think he's been in place now for over 20 years. He's learnt from Kevin Colbert. He's been with Kevin Colbert now for those 20 odd years. He's learnt from the very best. People may criticize, some Steeler fans criticize Colbert as they, because they're never happy. But Colbert has been an absolutely outstanding general manager for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The guy.
Wait a minute. Are you joking? 22 years. What?
Yeah.
2 Super Bowls, made 3, countless Pro Bowlers, Hall of Famers, Troy.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I've read and I've heard criticism of it. I just think, well,
what are you reading from? Troll.com or something?
I think so. Yeah, no, Facebook. No, Colbert is outstanding. Colbert is one of the best general managers that has ever been, and I think that he will go into the Hall of Fame. And Khan's learned from that, and that's great. And the other thing that I heard, I can't remember. I wish I remember who was talking about it, but when Bill Cowher gave up and retired from the Steelers head coaching position, he was offered other jobs. They tried to tempt him out of retirement, and he always said that if he was to take another job, part of the conditions for him taking that job was the franchise that he went to would move heaven and earth to get Omar Khan as their general manager. I mean, that just shows that when someone like Bill Cowher had that sort of faith in you, you're obviously very good at your job. Bill Cowher didn't suffer fools gladly. If he rates you, you're good at your job. And I think the way the Steelers have gone about this in terms of appointing Weedle as the assistant general manager and bringing in Sheldon White as well for the new ideas, I think they've built a very formidable team.
Do you think Cody White's sitting there going, yes?
Wide receiver 1, here I come. Daddy.
He's like, but Dad, what do you mean? I'm the best on the team. Yeah, sure you are, son. Yeah, whatever, mate.
Yeah. I don't know. I think
it doesn't mean much, right? It's just no.
He's not a GM and he's not the assistant GM, so he's got no power, really.
You still need to be a good player to make the team. And Cody White could make 5, but it's a long shot. Yeah. I got another question for you, Owen. Right, I want to talk about we just had the OTAs, but I want to focus again on the Steeler rookies, right? And we have their rookie numbers here. Out of these guys, out of Oladukin, Pickett, George Pickens, Austin, Haywood, Mark Robinson, DeMarvin Leal, who has impressed you so far? I know that's kind of funny, football and shorts. They haven't done any football yet, but still, they're on the camera. Who has impressed you so far? And I'll give you my pick.
So, 2 people that have really impressed, I think, Kenny Pickett. And as someone who wasn't particularly a fan of the pick, just the way he's come in, he's done his best. He's learning the playbook, and he looks a natural. He looks like he should be there. So him and George Pickens, who I absolutely love, George Pickens, just the way he conducts himself, the way he's practiced, he's been awesome. So yeah, that's for me. Who's your pick, Mark?
For me, and I don't know what these fellas are eating, but some of these, it looks like every year from college they're getting bigger and stronger. I like the idea of Mark Robinson actually making this team because I don't know if you saw it today. There was an interview with Missy Matthews, and by the way, I'm a Missy Matthews fan, so shoot me down if anyone wants to call me out for being a Missy Matthews fan. Some people don't like her, but maybe some people don't like me, but I like her. I think she could almost go into the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Fame. She's awesome. She had a conversation with Mark Robinson. The guy was very humble and he's very committed to, of course, being, the 7th rounder. And I think he knows where he stands. But I saw some highlights, and I think he's a sure fighter. He's so physical, and he used to be a running back too, so he doesn't mind getting gritty. Yeah. Did you see that interview yet? Or you too busy?
I haven't seen it yet. But
you're too busy tweeting the sub.
Yeah. Now I read something earlier about just saying that he, the way he plays the game, the way he conducts himself, he is a Pittsburgh Steeler. He loves hitting, he loves tackling, and he's not afraid of tackling people. And that's a Steelers linebacker. And I agree. He has impressed me. And I think if you consider the inside linebacker position that, you've got Bush, you've got Jack, you've got Spillane, But after those three, who is there realistically? You know, Marcus Allen. Marcus Allen does my head in. I honestly do not know what that guy contributes. I mean, he's a very good dancer. Don't get me wrong. You know, he's very good at dancing in the locker room. But other than that, I don't get what the guy contributes in the slightest.
He's not the biggest guy, is he, out in the
No.
field? Like, he doesn't look like a Mike Robinson. Looks like a linebacker. Allen doesn't look really. He looks more like a hybrid, safety or a free safety that can, play back off or the cornerback. He doesn't look like he wants to get messy in there. I've seen him make a few good tackles, but I don't know why that Marcus Allen is there either. I kind of think it's going to be Bush, Miles Jack, Spillane. I think Buddy Johnson will show a role too.
Yeah.
I think they might even go with Robinson, the fifth guy, but we'll see. They could put him on the practice squad, but there could be another chance that someone picks him up. Owen, is there any other Steeler news that you heard around the week before I go into the mailbag? Anything cracking out there in Steeler Nation?
I don't know. Did you see the Pat Freiermuth mic'd up video that came out of Steelers this week? Him and Zach Gentry was so funny, man.
I like that. And this is what I'm saying. I think it's turning into that. Look, I don't understand how people say we have no chance this year. The fellas are back.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Zach Gentry and these fellas are ready for their year 2 and year 3.
He was proper. They were proper funny, those two. Like, was it Freiermuth said to Gentry, "Go and tell Kenny to get his hair cut," and then he would go up to Kenny Pickett and went, "But have you ever beaten Penn State? Come on, have you ever beaten Penn State?" Just constantly ribbing him. It was so funny. I loved it. And Freiermuth, I think Freiermuth is going to be amazing this year.
Yeah, this is what I understand about the big talking head media, the ESPNs, some other channels out there do not understand where this Steeler team is coming from. Like, it's the Big Ben era is over, in my opinion. It's gone, and now we have the new quarterback. But you look at the offense and some of these players, and they're all getting re-energized to go out there and do something and play. And they're all younger. They're all around 25, 26. Yeah. Am I right? And they're getting into a second and third year. And that does mean a lot because it's a full off season to get into the weight program, to getting your your eating schedule better, to get all those kind of things better, to learn your craft, to understand, even just mature mentally as well as a human. Like, we all know when you're not the same person when you're 18 than when you are 26. And they say the male brain doesn't develop until you're 26 or 27, right? All these fellas are starting to understand. And I love that video too, because he bags out like Kenny. And he should do that. Like, that's the culture, I think, is kind of like, it's not hazing. It's just a little bit of poking the fun and understanding, well, Penn State, beat Kenny or whatever. And to see those two fellas, to understand the culture, get back at it, I'm super keen. Look, I'm super keen to get into it. Do you want to get into
did you see that? Did you see, your impression, did you think Pat Freiermuth had a good season last season?
Yeah. Overall, I think he did. But I agree with you. I think this season is just going to be a standout because yet again he looks more physical. He's had I think people forget as well, in the college game they play all year. They go to the draft. There's so much pressure and just everything's. And they're moving to a new city. Let's be real. If you're coming out from all the way from the West Coast, you got to travel 5 hours, get a new house, got to find a home. It's hard enough to move jobs and then find a house. Like, people forget the personal side of this industry as well. Is you got to move house, you have new family stuff going on. It's like you can't just plug in and play and expect it to do well. And maybe that's why too. I think with I didn't think he was that good of a player, but Schobert, like, he came in week 1 and he wasn't ready. Like, because of probably all this stuff, all the other stuff going on of like moving house and everything else. So.
I mean, the reason I asked you that question, Mark, was did you hear what Pat Freiermuth said when he was interviewed on Wednesday after OTAs? He said, I think my yards per catch average was atrocious. In my opinion, 8.2 yards, that was pretty bad on my end. I think if I have 60 catches, I should be more in the range of 800 to 900 yards. I think I definitely need to get that higher, and maybe we'll push the ball downfield more this year. I mean, the expectations this guy's got on himself, and that comment just tells me everything. He wants to improve and he wants to get better. The fact that 99% of Steeler fans thought he was fantastic last season, yet he doesn't think he was good enough. He thinks he can improve more, and I think that just shows where he's going to be this season coming.
Well, if he wants to averaging what 10 yards would be great. It'd be first down every time.
Yeah.
You know, I think as well. I think even behind him, I think Gentry is progressing better as a blocker and a receiver, and we don't really need Gentry to be a receiver out there with all the talent we have. And then obviously Connor Hayward learning the craft too, maybe being at the third tight end. But let's get into the mailbag today. So
Yep.
the first question I have it here is from James Dawn, and this is a good question. What effect do you think, and I know you talked about this before, but what effect do you think the Brian Flores will have on the Steelers defense this year? What a great question.
I think that it'll have a huge impact. I mean, you've already seen at OTA. I know it's early days, but you've already seen at OTAs him starting to establish the culture that he wants to bring into the defense this year. You know, he spent a lot of time with Miles Jack. He spent a lot of time with Devin Bush, working on coverage angles, on attack angles, on how to incorporate that into breaking up routes, and also not just with the linebackers, but also working with the defense in general. And the thing that you see, this is what I've heard from journalists that have been down at the UPMC Rooney facility, saying that players want to listen to him. They love listening to Brian Flores. And, Miles Jack, when he was interviewed on SNR, he said that he feels like he's stealing getting to work with one-to-one with Brian Flores. And the fact that Flores is an ex-head coach who understands, because he was ex-head coach, he has to understand every facet of the game. He has to understand how the offense works, the defense works, how all the position coaches works. He has that knowledge and expertise, and that he's going to pass on to the defense. I just think that his impact is going to be huge this year.
It's like putting a 5-star chef in a dinky, rundown, takeaway food shop and just delivering gems, because Flores' record is, as a head coach, is 24-25, won 24 and lost 25. But his progression from 2019 in Miami was he won 5 games, lost 11. In 2020, he won 10, then lost 6, right? So he got better. And then 2021, he was 9-8. You're right. You have a head coach there. In my opinion as well, I think it's a fantastic move by the Steelers to bring in a guy that can not only help the middle linebackers, but help out, give TJ, even if TJ needs a bit more coaching. But TJ loves that stuff. I can imagine those two talking up a clinic, like TJ, Flores, and Highsmith, all talking together, or Miles Jack and Devin Bush, and saying, how do we get better as a unit? Because the Pittsburgh Steelers are known for their linebackers in the past. And I know the era that I watched was Debo Harrison, Lamar Woodley, James Farrier, Larry Foote. Those are the guys that I focused on when I was growing up. And all you ever saw was them running around the field and chasing the football down and playing as a team unit, Who do you think this year, out of all the linebackers, and I got another 2 mailbags to go, out of all the linebackers will have the best year? I know we can say what, but is it what?
Out of all the linebackers, I think let's rule Watt out for a minute, because he's a freak. He's a freak. I mean, even Mike Tomlin said he comes from a different planet. That's the standard he's at. So yes, it's so easy to say it's TJ Watt. I mean, he is just he's just awesome. He's the best in the NFL. But Miles Jack, I think Miles Jack is going to bring a different element to this team. His mobility, his physicality, his ambition, and he said himself that he's not, for him, it's a breath of fresh air to be working in an environment 100%. Like Pittsburgh, where it's the stability. He hasn't had that stability being at Jacksonville. Same head coach for 15 years we've had. There's a stability there. There's a winning culture, a winning mentality, and he hasn't had that in his career. And it's so refreshing for him. And I think he will just grow exponentially under these coaches.
It's like it's bringing in a great player to a great organization. That's what it is. Because with the Steelers now, nothing overall has changed too much. Yes, we haven't won playoff games. We get that, but overall, the chance to win is always there. And him coming into the side, I agree with you. And I kind of want to see. I had a thought just now. I was like, if Alex Highsmith goes off this year, like I'm talking TJ Watt stuff. Like he becomes his own brand of whoa, have you seen Highsmith? If he turns into that, then we have the quarterbacks have a big problem. Who do you run away from, Highsmith or TJ what? Because even back in the day when it was Harrison and Lamar Woodley, even Lamar Woodley was one of the greatest linebackers too, because he wasn't talked about that much. Same number, but he played on the edge. He was havoc for this for the opposing teams, right?
Absolutely, and yeah, and if you look now at both sides, with 99% certain, well, we are that Tuitt's back. Both sides of that defense now, you've got Highsmith and Cam, and you've got Tuitt and TJ, and I think, wow, just those guys coming at you constantly. You don't even have to blitz, even if you've just got those 4 guys coming at you. It's scary, man.
You're exactly. Just send 3 or 4, or just send Hayward. Just send Hayward by himself. Let's just let Hayward take on all 5 of them and get to the quarterback. I've seen it before. He's done it. He blocked over 2 guys once.
I mean, the thing is, it's that question, isn't it? The way we got the way that teams sort of nullified the Steelers last year was the fact that you double team TJ because you didn't really have to worry about Chris Wormley. Whereas Tuitt's back, you've got Cam, you've got Alex, you've got TJ. Who on earth do you double team? You can't double team all of them because that's you're not going to make them just 3 players somewhere else on the team. What's that? The quarterback, 1 wide receiver, and a running back.
And it's the running backs for the opposing teams have to also start to block these fellas too. And if the running backs don't want to do that, then it becomes a chance. Well, this could break down really well. And I think we have led sacks for the past 5 years. I don't see it changing anytime different. The next mailbag question is from Jake Crosby. He says, huge fan of the podcast. Cheers, mate. We appreciate it and the channel. Keep up the good work, boys. 100%. Thank you. If you do like the podcast and our channel, Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate, please hit that sub. So thank you, Jake. He is a sub for sure. What do you think of the starting offensive line looks like in week 1?
I would say looking at, forget OTAs for a minute. It is football in shorts at the end of the day. I think Mason Cole starts at center for me. I think, the guy was solid in Minnesota last year. I just think that's your best bet with a new quarterback behind you. Put someone who is going to be solid. James Daniels, who I absolutely love, I think will play at right guard. Chooks at right tackle. I'm not a massive Chooks fan. Kevin Dotson at left guard and Dan Moore at left tackle. That's how I would start anyway.
Yeah, so I had a different opinion. I'm still going to stick with it. I still think that Green will start center. However, in the Steelers universe, there was talks about Kendrick Green and Dotson fighting for their position or for the left guard. So I made this, I think, a few weeks ago, and I still stand by it though. So we'll see. I made this. It was Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle, Dotson left guard, Green center, Daniels right guard, and Chooks at right tackle. And of course, all the other fellas, Johnson, Claypool, and those guys, that was a few weeks ago I had, right? But the big issue, I think, the one big issue I would say, and where you and I would disagree, would be I've got Green at center, but did you hear those reports about Green and Dotson challenging for that left guard spot?
Yeah, I did. I saw those reports. I also saw. I think it was. I think it was actually on. I think it was Jenna Hanna and Chris Carter talking about it, saying that. That Green had taken a lot of snaps at left guard in OTAs in this first initial phase of OTAs. Plus, also the Steelers coaches do seem to have, I don't know, doubts about or something against Kevin Dotson. I mean, last year we had the whole issue around there was those rumors coming out that he came back to camp not in a condition that the Steelers were happy with. That obviously he's experienced a fair few injuries as well and missed a fair few games. He missed at the end of last season. So it may be that the Steelers coaches are thinking that Green may provide a more solid option for them at that left guard, a more reliable option. I don't know. But they do seem to have something against Kevin Dotson. I don't know. What do you think, Mark?
Well, to me, it's not really overall a bad thing if you move Green to left guard and Mason Cole is center because he's primarily a center. Then I think you have a good backup, right? So you would use Dotson for left guard as well. I don't think it's really a big issue. I still think that Kendrick Green will start center, but what do I know? All I know is what I see. So, and I'm not going to buy too much into the rumors that now just because he had a bad season, they're going to move him to left guard and there's a challenging spot there. But it is quite curious to bring up that question and to understand, well, who will be our offensive line. But the one thing I just want this year is some good, solid depth and someone move the pile. I was watching highlights the other day, 2008, of like Owen Faneca, those fellas, and all those guys. They're pushing people off the football 3 or 4 yards and creating lanes.
Yeah.
We have not had that. The Steelers have not had that. Any physicality. They're more or less coming back to protect the pass, but no one is pushing up front. No, I don't play football, but what I see is they're just not doing that. And if they need to get that better presence, and we saw it a little bit last year with Dan Moore and Dotson together, would double team and be a good presence on the edge. But I want to see them get physical again and to move that. And maybe if that's moving Green to left guard, where he can be a mauler there and not focus on the center role, who knows? Because why else did they bring in Mason Cole? Similar situation with all the quarterbacks. Why else did they bring him in? They have to use them, right?
I heard also a lot of very positive things about Pat Mayer as well. The way he's been working with the line, that he was a lot more technical, a lot more clear in expectations and physical than Clem was.
Imagine if he was just like, okay, guys, I want you to move this guy to here. Can you do that? Can you move that guy 5 feet to here? And if you do that, if you give Nargi this much room, then he'll run through the hole.
I think I can't remember. Like I said, it was someone I heard talking about it. And I think it was actually on SNR, and I think it was actually Arthur Motes was actually talking about it. And he was saying about how there's a lot of positive stuff coming up about Maya and his technical way of working, and in him actually teaching and showing the line what he wants from them. And whereas Clem last year, yes, there was a lot of positivity about aggression, but as Arthur Motes said, if you're not aggressive, you shouldn't even be on the field. That's at the end of the day, you've got to be aggressive to play this game. And he felt that Clem wasn't perhaps teaching that technicality, whereas Mayer is spending a lot of time breaking down to line exactly what he wants, exactly how he wants them to do it. And they'll have more of an idea this year of what is expected of them and how to actually play on the offensive line.
I agree with that too. I think in there, I've said it before in other podcasts I do, but anything you do, I think you have to go in with 100%. Otherwise, you risk a chance of injury. If you do not play with 100% aggressiveness and be competitive, then you have a chance to injure yourself because you're not focused. So it is good to see what Pat Meyer is telling these fellas, because I don't understand the offensive line schemes, and I do, what I see, and even going back to Alan Faneca too, with the Willie Parker run where he came right around the outside and Willie Parker got the 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah,
like that is coached, and that is like all technique. As soon as the ball snaps, he drops back, runs around the center. He's the new lead guy and creates a lane, turns his body, and next minute Willie Parker has a lane. So I'm saying if you can teach these fellas that sort of dynamic of play to give Nargi a chance, and and he looks pretty big. Before we go into his life, mate, what are your thoughts on Nargi Harris, mate? But we could talk about him forever.
I was just say one last thing on the line. The other thing we've got this year that we didn't have last year is a leader, and that's Daniels. I think Daniels has been, from what I've heard,
he's
and
a good dude.
He is awesome. And I think the biggest testimony for me is to listen to opposition fans when they lose a player. And you listen to the Bears fans, and they are not happy about Daniels being allowed to leave. They are annoyed. I was going to use a stronger word there, but they are really annoyed. But no, Nargi is he looks like I don't know, with the beast mode vibes. He looks like he's trying to turn into Marshawn Lynch, doesn't he?
He's got like his legs, mate. His quads are the size of tree trunks. Like he just doesn't stop eating. Nargi's become my new favorite because he's so humble. He's so engaged in the process. Like he's so checked into what is to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. And I want him to be the similar way that Bell played in the first few years, where Bell was that great. He ran through holes and never got touched. And he would run out of bounds and he'd be like, okay, next one. He worked that hard to get to that position where he'd run out and do a great run, but he wasn't taking the bad hits that some of these running backs take. So I think Nargi, he can take it, but I want to see him, run 15 yards and go out of bounds, mate. Live another down and do it again, because some running backs try and stay in bounds. They get hit, they get tackled, they get hurt. Let's move into our last mailbag. I think it's not a question. Here we go. But I want to hear your thoughts on this. So Michael Armster says Tuitt puts us past one Super Bowl. So he thinks we have may have one Super Bowl. Sets us up for multiple runs. Flores brings the energy incarnate. What do you think about Tuitt having a chance for us to win Super Bowl? And we talked a bit about Flores already.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there is an opportunity there now that the window is reopening for us to be a team that competes for a Super Bowl. I certainly think that, given the fact that if you look at history, look at Pittsburgh Steelers history. Let's get away from the NFL history, but look at Pittsburgh Steelers history. 6 Super Bowls. When we've won 6 Super Bowls, what has been the thing that has been the most dominant part of our game? Defense. We win Super Bowls when our defense is dominant. And if you look back to the Steel Curtain of the 70s, you look back to the 2 Super Bowls in the 2000s. The defense is what was there. That was what won us those Super Bowls. And then we're getting back towards that now. We're getting back to having that elite level defense. And with the coaching staff, with Terrell Austin, Brian Flores, Kyle Dunbar, Mike Tomlin's influence. The guy was a defensive coordinator in Minnesota as well as a defensive backs coach in Tampa Bay. We've got an awesome defensive staff and an awesome defensive roster as well, and that's what will help us compete for the Super Bowls, no matter what analysts or what fans of opposition teams may say.
Well, speaking of Super Bowl, so I want to bring up this last point, and we'll start to end it very shortly. So, TJ Watt said this the other day, and you're exactly right. TJ Watt said the number one goal has always been to win the Super Bowl. Now, we do have to go out there. The Steelers have to go out there and win a playoff game, but I'm going to say it right now. I don't care who they verse. If the starting 11 on defense in our offense is everyone's pretty much healthy around, bring back or most of the players are starting. I don't care who they play. I really don't. I think if they're playing at this elite level and then we go into the season, we have a chance to go into another playoff game. I don't care if it's the Bills. I don't care if it's the Titans. I don't care if it's the Chiefs. I think we have a big chance to go out there and win that game based on what they have done in the offseason and the coaching and the new organization with Omar Khan and everyone else, new quarterback. I think they have a chance this year. But these undoubted movements that the Pittsburgh Steelers have done so far, people are scared and they can't do anything. They suck. You know what I'm saying? So how does it doesn't make any sense. We got better in the offseason, and apparently we are the worst team.
It doesn't make any sense to me either. I mean, if you think we were half a game back from winning the division last year against the all-conquering, amazing, fantastic Bengals.
If the Pittsburgh Steelers win that, the Bengals lose 1 or 2, I think we win that division, and then we play at home. That's completely different for Big Ben at home in that playoff run. If Big Ben was at home with that Steelers defense, we had a chance. Whoever came to Heinz Field, but we had to go to KC, and I was hopeful, but. Actually, I was really hopeful when TJ Watt scooped and scored that fumble. I was like, 7-0, we have a chance. And we got blown out of the water. And,
Yeah, you look back at that game, and I think, if we'd had a half-decent offense, we could have stayed in that game for longer. For 20 minutes, we held the Chiefs in check, and the defense was absolutely awesome. And this year's defense is better than last year's defense. It was the fact that the offense was absolutely abject in that team and could not move the ball. 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And the defense got gassed. Mahomes then started to exploit the tiredness of the defense, as he will do, because he's a fantastic quarterback with Kelsey, Hill, Pringle, etc., Hardman. But if we had this season's offense, which I think is going to be a whole lot better, because the line, look, I'm not saying this is going to be the greatest line in the world, but the line is better. Even if it is ranked, 17th, 18th, that's still a massive improvement from where it was. Trubisky, Pickett, whoever starts, I love Ben to bits. Ben is my favorite quarterback, and I'm not saying that he's the greatest quarterback in Steelers history before anyone slaughters me over that, because I have been slaughtered over that. But he, from 2019 onwards, he was not the same guy. Once he blew his elbow up, that was it. And his mobility had gone. He didn't have the deep ball anymore, and that the offense suffered because of that. We've now got quarterbacks in terms of Trubisky and Pickett who are mobile. They can throw the ball deep. They can extend plays, something Ben couldn't do. We've got Najee Harris a year on, Pat Freiermuth, George Pickens, Calvin Austin III, Chase Claypool, Deontay Johnson. It's a better all-round offense than it was last year.
Yeah, but I think we're going to lose to these guys week 1. Sorry, I'm having too much fun. I've got all these images in my StreamYard. I'm having way too much fun that I can use them in certain segments. All right.
Mark, tell you something, right? Do you know what? We owe those Bengals big time, mate, and they're going to do it for you, Mark. They're going to do it for you. That's what they're doing. That's what I've heard.
I just don't understand how we've already lost in some videos and networks. And it's funny, you brought up the idea of the O-line being the 17th or the 16th or whatever you said, right? A lot of talking heads in the NFL media, ESPN, all those guys, they are just saying the Steelers are really bad or the worst, or they put them middle because they don't know. They don't know what to say because they don't want to go out there on a limb. They don't want to put them too far back to say they're 30, but they don't want to put them too far forward to say they're 10, right? But they're giving the benefit of the doubt to the Ravens, who have lost 6 games in a row. Lamar Jackson, yes, he got injured, and they're saying that they got better. They're giving the benefit of the doubt to the Browns, who don't even know if their quarterback Watson will be starting week 1. They don't, and then also benefit of the doubt to Super Bowl losers, the Bengals, who they reckon they're going to be AFC North champs. I just think overall it's crazy. You can't forget about what the Steelers are doing. And they went to the playoffs with a 9-8 record last year. And maybe they shouldn't have been there, but they still got there. You know what I'm saying? That's the point. And anything you want to end on before we call it a day?
No, like I said, I 100% agree with what you've just said. And it made me laugh during the week reading something about the fact that according to some analysts, the Browns have got the best chance of winning the AFC North. It's like, based on what? The fact that they were the worst team last year, they're actually, I think, weaker this year on offense than they were last year. Yes, okay, Watson is probably a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield, but in terms of weapons, he's got less weapons than Mayfield had.
If Watson doesn't play for what he's going through, right, gets suspended, right? Why would Baker want to play? why would you want to play for an organization that has just absolutely dissed you? Yeah. And you're under center going, okay, I'm risking my life for Cleveland.
Look, I don't like Baker Mayfield. I don't particularly rate the guy either, but he played hurt all of last season.
He played with a broken shoulder, and they still put him out there.
Yeah, he could have quite easily said, I ain't playing. I need this operated on. He played, and they treated like I said, I don't like the guy, but they treated him like awful. They
have done him dirty 100%. But it is funny because I don't really like him either as a player. But because the one thing when he tried to play the Steelers, he always had that ego, and there's that big run that he went down and got the first down, and then they, I think he threw an interception or something happened near the end. But then another time when he ran into Sutton, and Sutton gave him the shoulder. He fell over like a bloody pillowcase. He had nothing on him, but. I think the Browns overall, there's no way the Browns are AFC North contenders this year. I don't even think they'll make the playoffs. I think the Steelers and the Ravens, before we end, like who do you think is the biggest competition you think for the Steelers this year in the AFC North? And then I'll start to end it.
Ravens. Just because of their defense, just because they've got a pretty awesome. They've rebuilt their secondary. They've got they've rebuilt their defensive line as well. They've got Travis Jones, who's one of my favorite guys in the draft. I just think, the Ravens will be up there. And look, I don't like John Harbaugh, but he is a good coach. That's a fact. The guy's.
I think what we might do next week, Owen, is trying to investigate our time and try and figure out why the NFL big talking heads and other people think the Steelers have gotten worse, when in reality they've gotten far better without Big Ben and far better this season. Because I don't know where they're coming, what their points coming from. The draft was unbelievable. I think the draft is getting Pickens and the receivers and the two Leal's awesome too, and tight end depth too. Like I don't understand what they mustn't watch. They mustn't watch what the Steelers are doing. Bring in the new. Okay. We'll get into it next week.
Okay.
We'll get into it next week. Whatever the topic is, we'll talk about how do you see this as a negative? I haven't seen too many negatives. The only negative I saw this season is trying to figure out what Tuiit would do, and possibility what Hayden is doing too, because Hayden could come back for a year or two and help out this team if it is a lesser role. But I don't know. Anything you want to say before we go?
Nah, so I can't. You know what? I am super optimistic for this new season. I really am, Mark.
Me too. And I know I say it every year, but this feels different. I think it's a new era. Maybe because it's new, there's post Big Ben, and it's like we were kind of stuck in the Big Ben days from 2015, 2016, where it was getting like that was him, and we just had that same feeling for the last 5 years. Now we have a new quarterback. Nargi is getting bigger and better. Pickens, all these guys. I just don't understand how we're going to lose week one, or how people said we have gotten worse in the offseason. I just don't get it. But thank you for everyone for checking out the Steelers Syndicate podcast and the Pittsburgh Steelers Syndicate. I'm your host, Mark, and my co-host, Britsburg. Owen, you want to send us out, Owen, with what you say?
Yeah. Here we go, Steelers. Come on.
Here we go, Steelers. I'll see you later.